Stand with me on a desert ridge where coyotes cry and the horizon bleeds fire. A widow's wagon breaks, her baby barely breathing. In the silence, a cowboy steps out. Giant, scarred, feared by all. But when he lifts the child, his hands are gentler than prayer. What happens when brute strength hides a secret past, and the ranch he serves is split by envy and betrayal? You'll want to see how far love can rise from ashes. Don't scroll drop your thoughts, hit subscribe, and share this ride with a friend. July 1876. The year cattle prices collapsed and water sold dearer than whiskey in towns along the frontier. The New Mexico desert burned red under a pitiless sun, stretching wide as eternity, dust shimmering like broken glass. Sarah May gripped the reins with blistered hands, her breath shallow, bonnet pulled low against grit. The wagon creaked with every rut, one wheel bound by a leather strap she had tied in Dry Creek. Beside her, wrapped in a worn wool blanket, lay Samuel. Her baby's chest rose faintly, a flutter, a whisper. "Hold on," she murmured, though her lips were cracked. "Please, hold on." The horse staggered, ribs jutting, foam streaking its jaw. 3 days since it drank deep. 3 days since fever climbed Samuel's small body, like fire on dry grass. Each cough rattled him thin as bird bones. Each silence cut her heart like a blade. Dry Creek already felt like a dream. She saw again the saloon porch crowded with ranch hands, boots hooked over railings, smoke curling from 5-cent cigars. Whiskey 10 cents a glass, watered down. The smell of sweat and horse drifting through warped doors. She had asked with a voice near breaking, "Where can I find help for a sick child?" And they laughed, until one grizzled trader leaned forward, beer breath heavy, and whispered, "Red Creek Ranch." Big man there, rough, mean if crossed, but saved a child once. Knows medicine no ranch cook should. Laughter rolled again, but she had clung to the words as if nailed into her chest. That rumor was all she carried, West Hope dressed as hearsay. The wagon jolted. Samuel stirred with a sound too faint. She pressed the canteen to his lips, last drops of warm water sliding useless down his cheek. His throat worked once, then slackened. Panic struck, short breaths. Fast. "No, please." "Stay," the horse buckled. Dust leapt as it fell, the wagon jerking to a halt. Silence spread, heavy as lead. Sarah dropped from the seat, boots sinking in sand, knees weak. She tried to tug the reins. The beast groaned, ribs heaving, then lay still. Wolves howled somewhere distant, long and hungry. Overhead, a vulture traced slow circles, black wings cutting the glare. The desert knew her struggle and marked her for carrion. Her strength broke. She collapsed beside the wheel, Samuel pressed tight to her chest. His forehead seared her lips when she kissed him. His body jerked once, then stilled frighteningly. The desert roared with silence. Memories rushed back, Missouri, winter, a pine box lowered with no marker. Her husband, coughing blood until breath gave out. Consumption had hollowed him, and now it clawed at her child. Fate hunted her across miles. Her tears cut through grit on her cheeks. She rocked Samuel in despair, whispers sharp, jagged, "Not you too." God, not him, time stretched cruel. She thought of selling the Henry rifle under the seat, worth $30. Enough to buy food or a mule. But steel could not cure fever. She thought of bread she baked once in Missouri kitchens, of markets where apples cost 3 cents each, where Samuel's laughter had been a promise. Now only rasping silence. Her heart sank. Breath shallow, vision blurring. Then a shape. Through heat shimmer, faint lines appeared on the horizon. Posts, fences, corrals. She blinked, heart hammering. Was it mirage, like the water pools that vanished when she neared? No stronger now. A roof pitched against sky, smoke curling from a chimney. Red Creek Ranch. The words thundered in her chest. The rumor, the laughter in Dry Creek. The grizzled trader's whisper. It was here, rising from dust like salvation. Samuel stirred faintly. A sigh. thin as wind through sage. Enough to force her body upright. She could not stay. She could not bury him in this barren place. She abandoned the horse, the wagon leaning broken. She took Samuel in one arm, the rifle in the other, and walked. Boots crunched gravel. Heat pressed heavy. Her body trembled. Wolves howled again, closer. The vulture dipped low, shadow sliding across her path. "Hold on," she told Samuel, though his eyes stayed closed. "We're close." Each step was war. The hill rose, cruel and steep. Sweat blinded her. She stumbled, caught herself with the rifle, kept moving. Her chest burned, throat raw. She thought she would fall. Yet crest by crest, the ranch grew clearer. Fences, barns, corrals, thick with horses tossing manes. A windmill groaned, pulling water from deep earth. The smell reached her, a whisper of hay, a thread of bread baking. Her legs quaked, but she climbed. At the ridge, she stopped, gasping, dust swirling around her. There it was, a house of weathered logs, roof scarred by storms, standing stubborn against the vastness. Smoke drifted soft from the cookhouse chimney. The place was alive, not ghost, not mirage. She clutched Samuel close, hearing the faintest breath still moving in his chest. Relief hit sharp, almost pain. Her whisper broke, cracked but fierce. "We made it. Just hold on, my darling." Hold on, and on the ridge, through the red dust, the wooden roof of Red Creek Ranch shimmered like a mirage. Sarah May forced her weary body down the slope, each step unsteady. Samuel hung limp against her shoulder, breath shallow as a moth wing. The rifle dragged in her other hand, heavy as iron shackles. She whispered the same plea she had spoken on the trail. "Hold on, baby. Just hold on." The ranch spread below, solid against the desert. Corrals stretched wide, horses restless under heat, tails slapping at flies. A blacksmith's hammer rang from a shed, striking sparks bright against the glare. Chickens scurried near the cookhouse porch. From its chimney rose a coil of smoke, rich with the smell of bread. The scent clawed her stomach. She had not eaten in days. Her vision blurred, but through dust she saw the door swing open. A shadow filled it, too tall, too broad to be ordinary. At first she thought heat played tricks again, but the figure stepped forward, and the ground seemed to bend under his weight. The man was enormous, 3 meters tall if an inch, chest broad as a stall door. His shirt clung to his frame, sleeves rolled, fabric stretched across carved muscle. Sun caught the pale scar that crossed his jaw, half hidden by stubble. His hat, beige and sweat-stained, shaded eyes storm gray. Spurs chimed on boots thick with dust. Fear froze her. If this was the cowboy whispered of in Dry Creek, rough as a grizzly, dangerous as any outlaw, what mercy could she expect? Her knees weakened. Samuel stirred faintly, a breath rattling through fever. She stumbled forward, driven by desperation. The giant did not rush. He walked slow, each step measured, dust puffing beneath his boots. Chickens scattered from his path. Sarah felt swallowed by his shadow as he stopped a pace away. "Ma'am." His voice was deep, coarse, as if shaped by smoke and whiskey. No cruelty colored it, only a weight of habit. His eyes shifted to Samuel. "What's wrong with the child?" Her throat constricted. "Fever 3 days. He hardly breathes. I gave water, herbs, nothing." Her words cracked under panic. He extended both hands, huge and scarred. "Let me," she faltered. All her memories of men who mocked widows, who struck when drink soured, rose like ghosts. Yet Samuel's chest fluttered faintly, fading. She had no choice. With shaking arms, she surrendered her baby. The cowboy lifted Samuel as if he weighed no more than a loaf. His massive hands cupped the small skull with surprising grace. His expression changed. The lines of his face softened. Storm eyes clouded not with threat, but concern. He bent close, listening for breath. Relief crashed through Sarah, so sudden it hurt. The man muttered, "Burning up. Weak. Needs cooling fast." Words clipped, practiced. He turned, gesturing. Inside, she followed, stumbling across the yard. Ranch hands paused their work, watching. Dusty vests, hats low, eyes narrowed with curiosity. Voices drifted. That's Hank. Hank Lawson's got another stray. Who's she? So the name, Hank Lawson. He carried Samuel into the cookhouse. The door shut behind, shutting out the sun. Warmth, scented with yeast, onions, and smoke, enveloped them. The room surprised her, larger than expected. Stone hearth glowing, shelves lined with jars, pans polished, tables scarred by knives. Hank laid Samuel on a clean cloth spread across the table. He unwrapped the blanket. Fever blotched the child's cheeks, ribs visible beneath pale skin. Sarah bit her lip till blood came. How blind had she been, not seeing how thin he had become. Hank's hand, broad as a shovel, pressed gently to Samuel's chest, then neck, then brow. The touch was delicate, impossibly so for a man of such size. He studied each breath. Sarah clutched the table. "Can you save him?" His eyes did not lift. "I can try." No lies. No easy promise. Just the line of truth. Her heart slammed. He reached for a jar, ground willow bark, mixed with honey in a tin cup. Motion swift, sure, practiced. Not the fumbling of superstition, but knowledge. She watched, caught between awe and fear. "Where did you learn?" His glance cut her short. "Later." He dipped cloth into water drawn from the well, pressed it against Samuel's forehead. "Easy, little one," he murmured, voice shifting low, almost tender. "Easy now." Sarah's throat burned. This giant, feared in rumor, bent now like a father over her child. She had come here with nothing but despair. Here was a man whose hands bore scars but carried gentleness. At last he looked up. "Fever's deep, but the boy's strong." "We'll fight it." Tears pricked her eyes. She nodded, unable to speak. Outside, boots struck the porch. Voices rose, sharp with authority. Sarah stiffened. Hank turned, broad back filling the doorway. Through the crack, she glimpsed a younger man striding across the yard. Spurs jangled, hat cocked, expression curled in disdain. His voice cut clear. "What's this? Another mouth to feed? This is a ranch, not a charity house." Sarah's chest clenched. Already the threat of being cast out. The baby whimpered, shallow but alive. She bent close, whispering again, "Hold on." The door hinges groaned, and Hank Lawson turned, storm eyes shadowed, towering in the frame, as the ranch's welcome twisted into something far more perilous. The younger man strode across the yard, spurs biting the dust, boots striking with authority that was not yet earned. His hat sat at a careless angle, jaw clenched tight with disdain. Sarah May felt the weight of his stare even through the crack in the door. "Garrett Morrison," Hank muttered, voice low, carrying both recognition and warning. The name meant nothing to Sarah, but the bitterness in Hank's tone told her enough. Garrett stopped on the porch, thumb hooked through his belt. "You've gone soft, Hank. Dragging strays into my father's ranch. A widow with a sick brat, what good does that bring Circle M?" The insult burned. Sarah's breath caught, heart tightening as if her ribs themselves shrank. She bent lower over Samuel, whose fevered chest fluttered. Hank filled the doorway, unmoving. "Watch your mouth. The boy's sick. She needs help." Garrett's laugh was sharp. "And who made you judge of who stays or goes? You're foreman, not master." The tension hummed like a drawn bowstring. Sarah's stomach churned. The air smelled of iron and sweat, smoke drifting from the hearth inside. Samuel whimpered, the sound fragile against the clash of men's voices. Hank spoke steady. "Mr. Morrison isn't here. Until he is, I'll do what keeps the ranch right." "Ranch runs on profit, not pity," Garrett snapped. His boots creaked closer. Sarah feared he would step inside, seize her, toss her into dust. Her hands trembled on the rifle leaning by the wall. Then Samuel coughed sharp, rattling, painful. The sound sliced the air like a blade. Hank turned his head, And in that moment, Sarah saw his decision. He shut the door in Garrett's face, wood slamming like a gavel. From outside came Garrett's curse, followed by his boots striking away across the yard. Inside, silence fell heavy, broken only by Samuel's ragged breaths. Hank's massive frame returned to the table. He knelt, shoulders bowed, dipping cloth into cool water. His hands pressed gentle against Samuel's chest, coaxing breath. "Stay with me, little one," he murmured. Sarah felt her throat burn, relief tangled with fear. They were still inside the storm. Hank mixed another measure of powder into the honey, lifted Samuel's head. "We'll give him drops. Slow." Sarah cradled her son's skull in her palms, terrified of losing him between heartbeats. Hank tilted the spoon. Liquid slid onto cracked lips. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Samuel swallowed weakly. Sarah exhaled a sob. "That's it," Hank said. His voice softened, almost tender. "Strong boy." Her tears fell hot, dropping onto her hands. She wiped them away fiercely. "Don't stop, Samuel." "Not now," Hank looked at her then, eyes heavy with memory. "Don't blame yourself. Fever takes the strongest if left unchecked." His words carried shadows. Sarah glimpsed grief hidden deep pain older than this day. A glint at his chest drew her eye. A small silver locket, worn thin at the edges, hanging from a leather cord. He caught her glance, then turned away, jaw set. The cloth hissed as he dipped it again, water dripping onto stone. Night crept in through the windows, desert heat giving way to chill. Shadows stretched across the table. Samuel's breathing steadied slightly, but the fever still burned high. Sarah sat rigid beside him, every nerve tuned to the rhythm of his lungs. She remembered Missouri winters, the bitter smell of coal smoke, her husband's cough growing weaker until silence. The image seared fresh. "Not again. Not this child." Her whisper broke the stillness. "Why do you know so much?" Hank did not answer at once. He wrung out the cloth, laid it carefully across Samuel's brow. Only then did he speak. "Because I failed once." Sarah blinked. His face was turned, half in shadow. "Failed?" "My wife and daughter. Fever took them 3 winters ago." His voice was steady but distant. Each word dragged from deep places. "I tried everything I knew. Learned more when it was already too late. So now—" He trailed off, shaking his head. The silence pressed heavy. Sarah's chest ached with an echo of his loss. She wanted to speak, to say she understood, but words failed. Samuel stirred, crying weakly. Sarah bent low, murmuring comfort. Her hand brushed Hank's by accident. His skin was rough, scarred, but his hand did not flinch. For a breath, something passed, recognition. A bridge of grief between strangers. Outside, coyotes yipped under rising moon. Boots scuffed faintly in the yard, men moving, voices low. The ranch worked on despite the storm inside. Hank straightened, massive frame blocking the hearth glow. "He'll need the night. Fever breaks or it doesn't. We'll fight it. But it's his battle too." Sarah's jaw clenched. "Then I'll sit here. I won't let him go alone." He gave a single nod, as if in respect. Hours dragged. The cookhouse ticked with sounds. Wood popping, kettle hissing, Samuel's uneven breathing. Sarah's head dropped once, twice, but she forced herself awake. Every time her eyes closed, she saw Missouri's graveyard, plain wooden crosses. Near dawn, Samuel convulsed with a violent cough. Panic surged. Sarah gasped, clutching him. Hank's hands steadied, thumping gently at the tiny back, coaxing the breath through. "Come on, little one. Don't quit now." For an agonizing moment, Samuel did not inhale. Silence. Sarah's world collapsed into that void. Then a gasp, ragged but real. His chest rose, fell. Another cough, then a thin wail. Tears flooded Sarah's face. She kissed his damp forehead, whispering thank you over and over. Hank exhaled, shoulders dropping as if a mountain shifted. "That's a good sound." The baby whimpered, still weak. but alive. His fever flushed less bright. Sarah sagged back, drained. The smell of smoke and herbs filled her nose. The nightmare had not ended, but a door had opened. She looked at Hank. "You saved him." He shook his head slowly. "Not yet. But he has a chance now." She swallowed, voice thick. "That's more than I had this morning." Hank's eyes softened, storm clouds breaking for a heartbeat. Then he turned away, busying himself with the hearth. The door banged open without warning. Garrett stood framed in morning light, dust on his boots, eyes sharp as knives. He looked from Sarah to the child, then to Hank. His mouth curled. "I warned you. Strays don't belong here." The baby stirred, moaning faintly. Sarah clutched him close. Hank stepped forward, towering, blocking Garrett's advance. His voice rumbled low. "Step back." Garrett sneered. "Or what? You'll fight me over a woman you don't know, and a brat who'll drain our stores?" The air cracked with tension. Men's voices rose outside, sensing the confrontation. Sarah's pulse thundered. She felt the rifle by her side, heavy, ready. Samuel whimpered again. Hank's jaw tightened. Storm eyes darkened. And in that instant, Sarah knew the fever in her child was not the only fire that would break before dawn. Garrett Morrison stepped into the cookhouse, boots grinding grit across the floorboards. The morning sun at his back cut his figure into a dark outline, a shadow against the fragile light inside. His eyes, sharp and restless, fixed on Hank Lawson with a mixture of challenge and contempt. Hank shifted his stance, storm eyes steady, shoulders squared to fill the doorway. His voice rumbled low. "You've said enough, Garrett." But Garrett smirked, brushing dust from his vest. "Said enough? No, Hank. I'll say what every hand's thinking. This widow and her brat will drag us down. And you, foreman or not, you've got no right to turn Circle M into a sick ward." Sarah tightened her arms around Samuel. The baby whimpered softly, but his breathing, though shallow, was steadier than before. She felt the heat still clinging to his skin, but prayed it was lessening. Hank did not flinch. "Mr. Morrison trusted me to run this place. Until he says otherwise, I'll do what's needed." She stays Garrett's jaw clenched. "My father's too old to see how you twist things. You play savior for every stray that wanders in. One day he'll see it clear, and you'll be out on your back." The words hung heavy. Sarah's heart thudded against her ribs. She had walked into the cookhouse clinging to hope, yet now felt the precariousness of it all. Her safety balanced on the edge of a quarrel between men. Hank's storm eyes narrowed. "Get out." For a heartbeat, Sarah feared Garrett would press further, would force violence. But he only sneered, spat on the floorboards, and turned on his heel. His spurs jangled as he strode into the yard, muttering curses under his breath. Silence returned, broken only by the faint hiss of the hearth. Hank turned back to the table, shoulders still tight with anger. Sarah watched him dip cloth into water, wringing it out with deliberate calm before pressing it against Samuel's brow. His hands steadied, but his eyes were distant, haunted. She found her voice at last. "Why does he hate you so?" Hank's jaw worked, but he did not answer immediately. He seemed to measure the weight of the question. At length he spoke, tone flat. "Garrett wants this ranch, thinks I stand in his way." "Truth is, I do," Sarah's pulse quickened. "But you're only foreman." He gave a humorless chuckle. "Foreman in name. Morrison made me more than that. 3 years now I've run Circle M while Garrett dreams of being master. He sees me as a thief, a usurper. Nothing I do will change that." His eyes fell to Samuel, and his voice softened. "But I'll not toss a woman and child to the dust just to keep peace with him." Sarah's throat tightened. She wanted to thank him, but gratitude felt too small, too fragile. Instead, she looked at her son, then back at Hank. "You've lost before, haven't you?" To fever, his body stilled. For a long moment, only the crackle of fire filled the silence. Then, slowly, he reached inside his shirt and drew out a small silver locket, worn thin by years of touch. He held it in his broad palm. "My wife, Mary, and our daughter Hannah." His voice was steady but hollow, as though rehearsed in grief. He opened the locket, revealing a miniature photograph, edges fading. A woman with kind eyes, a child no older than Samuel, curls tied with ribbon. Consumption took them. I tried everything. Nothing worked. The room seemed to shrink. Sarah's heart twisted with sorrow, not her own. She whispered, "I'm sorry." Hank closed the locket and slipped it back beneath his shirt. Sorry doesn't bring them back. But it makes a man choose. Some choose the bottle. I chose to learn. Herbs, tonics, every remedy I could find. Didn't save mine, but maybe it'll save others. His words carried weight beyond himself. Sarah felt the burn of tears. For the first time since Missouri, she did not feel utterly alone in her grief. Samuel stirred, a soft cry escaping. Hank leaned close, laying his hand gently on the boy's chest. "He's fighting." "That's good." The cookhouse door rattled with sudden knocks. Both Sarah and Hank stiffened. But this time the voice that followed was older, steadier. "Lawson? That you in there?" Hank opened the door. A ranch hand, hair gray at the temples, stood with hat in hand. "Boss wants you at the house." "Says now," Hank gave a curt nod. "Tell him I'll come once the boy's settled." The man glanced inside, eyes lingering on Sarah, then Samuel. Something softened in his face. He tipped his hat before walking off. Hank shut the door again, then looked at Sarah. "Morrison wants answers. Garrett's been in his ear." This could turn ugly, her breath caught. "Will he send us away?" "I won't let him," Hank said, voice firm. Yet his eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. The weight of his words pressed on Sarah. She had risked everything to come here. And now her fate dangled by the threads of ranch politics. Night yielded fully today. Light streamed through the windows, painting the scarred table in gold. Samuel's cheeks still burned, but less fiercely. His breathing eased fraction by fraction. Sarah clung to each sign, whispering prayers of gratitude. Hank straightened, exhaustion etched into his frame. "He'll need more care. But I've got to face Morrison before Garrett poisons him against us." Sarah's pulse spiked. "You can't leave." "I must." He rested a heavy hand on her shoulder, the weight steady, grounding. "Keep the cloth cool. Feed him drops when he stirs. You're stronger than you think." His storm eyes held hers for a breath longer than needed. Then he turned, ducking through the door, boots heavy on the porch. Sarah sat alone with Samuel. The baby whimpered, and she hushed him softly. Her hand brushed the damp cloth across his brow. The silver locket still glinted in her mind's eye, a symbol of loss and promise both. Outside, voices carried from the main house sharp, urgent. She could not hear words, only tones of confrontation. The ranch itself seemed to hold its breath. Samuel sighed, curling weakly against her. She bent low, whispering again the only words that had carried her across miles of desert. "Hold on." And in the distance, the sound of raised voices swelled, promising that the past Hank Lawson carried was not finished, but only beginning to cast its shadow across them all. Sarah May stood in the cookhouse, Samuel cradled close, listening. Words blurred, carried on morning wind, but tones cut sharp. Garrett's youthful snarl, the gravel of his father's age, Hank's storm-deep rumble. Every sentence struck like iron on an anvil. Samuel whimpered. She dipped the cloth in cool water, pressing it gently to his brow. His skin still burned, but not as fiercely as before. Hope flickered, fragile as a candle flame. The door opened suddenly. A hand tugged his hat off, gray hair damp with sweat. It was the same older ranch hand who had delivered Morrison's summons. He gave Sarah a steady look. "Best hold your ground, ma'am. Words fly like bullets out there." Her pulse spiked. "Will they drive us out?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "That'll depend on Lawson." The man left, boots heavy on the porch. Sarah pressed Samuel tighter, whispering, "Hold on, baby." Just hold on. Inside the big ranch house, tension thickened like storm clouds. Mr. Morrison, silver hair combed back, sat in a heavy oak chair carved with cattle brands. His cane leaned at his side, though his back was straight, eyes still sharp. Garrett paced the room, words tumbling fast. He brings her in without asking, without thought for the men. A widow, father, with nothing to offer but trouble. What'll the hands think? That Circle M is a charity? Hank Lawson stood opposite, arms folded across his chest. His massive frame seemed to dwarf the beams above, but his voice was steady. The boy was dying. No time for debate, Garrett wheeled on him. Always your excuse, act first, answer later. One day Father will see what you really are. Morrison raised a hand. Silence fell, reluctant but firm. His gaze fixed on Hank. Is it true? You brought them here without a word? Hank met his eyes. It is. And I'd do it again. The child needed saving. The older man tapped his cane against the floor. And can you save him? I'll try. Morrison leaned back, expression unreadable. Then the matter rests for now. We'll judge by results. Garrett's mouth opened in protest, but Morrison's glare silenced him. Enough, boy. Respect the foreman's call. Garrett's jaw worked, teeth grinding. He stalked to the window, arms crossed tight. Morrison's gaze returned to Hank. But know this. Circle M is no place for weakness. If you choose to carry strays, you carry the weight as well. Their fate is on you, Hank inclined his head, neither defiant nor submissive. Understood. By midday, word spread through the yard. Men spoke in low tones as they forked hay or checked tack. Some muttered sympathy, others suspicion. The ranch divided not by fists, but by whispers. Sarah felt their stares when she stepped out to fetch more water from the pump. Samuel slept lightly in a basket Hank had fashioned from a crate, blanket tucked snug. She moved quickly, but whispers followed. Another mouth to feed. She looked half dead on that wagon. Kid's sick, what if it spreads? She kept her head high, though her cheeks burned. At the pump, she struggled with the handle until a shadow fell across her. The gray-haired hand Ben Fletcher took the handle with a nod. Let me. Water gushed, cold and clear. He filled her bucket, then met her eyes. Don't mind talk. Men grumble when they're hungry, grumble worse when they're scared. Sarah swallowed. And are they scared of me? Not of you. He lowered his voice. Of change. This ranch runs on habit, and Lawson's the only one strong enough to bend it. Garrett, he's a snake, but not near as dangerous as fear in 30 hungry men. His words settled heavy. She thanked him quietly and carried the bucket back. Every step weighted with the knowledge that she walked a thin edge. In the cookhouse, Hank returned late in the afternoon. Dust clung to his boots, shirt damp from heat. He checked Samuel first, hand brushing the boy's forehead. A grunt of relief escaped him. Sarah whispered, Fever's easing. Good. He straightened, eyes shadowed. But Garrett won't quit. He'll press until something breaks. She searched his face. And you? His gaze met hers, storm gray steady. I've broken before. Not again. She wanted to ask more, but his jaw set like stone. Instead, she focused on Samuel, who shifted in his sleep, breath still shallow but less ragged. Supper brought the next fracture. The long tables in the mess hall filled with men, the smell of beans and coffee heavy in the air. Sarah had cooked under Hank's guidance simple fare, but hot and plentiful. The hands ate with gusto, murmuring approval between bites. Then Garrett rose at the end of the table. His voice carried, sly with charm. Fine meal tonight. Surprising, seeing as our new cook only arrived yesterday, half dead herself. Makes a man wonder what else might she be hiding. Laughter rippled from a few corners, uneasy. Sarah froze, ladle in hand. Hank stood slowly, chair scraping. Enough, Garrett smirked. Touchy, Lawson. Or is it you who's hiding something? You guard her close. The men see it. Maybe you've forgotten where loyalty lies. The room tensed. Ben Fletcher cleared his throat, muttering, "Food's good." "Let her be," others nodded, voices rising in agreement. Garrett's smile faltered, but his eyes burned. He slammed his cup on the table. "Enjoy your stew. When Father sees how far Lawson's dragged us, don't say I didn't warn you." He strode out, spurs ringing like a challenge. Later, when the tables emptied and silence returned, Sarah found Hank outside, leaning against the porch rail. Moonlight silvered his scar, cast shadows across his face. "You defended me," she whispered. He shook his head. "You defended yourself with the meal you served. Men trust their bellies more than speeches. That's why Garrett hates you already." Sarah clutched her shawl tighter. "I never asked for this fight." "No one does," Hank murmured. His gaze turned toward the horizon, where coyotes howled under the stars. "But fights come anyway." Samuel stirred in his basket, a small cry breaking the night. Sarah bent to soothe him. When she looked back, Hank's storm eyes lingered on the child, shadowed with something more than duty. She thought of the locket hidden beneath his shirt, of the grief he carried like a wound that never healed. And she realized that Garrett was not wrong about one thing. Hank Lawson did guard her close. Not out of charity, but from something deeper, dangerous, and harder to name. The night settled heavy, the ranch divided by whispers and unspoken loyalties. Inside the cookhouse, Sarah whispered once more to Samuel, "Hold on." And outside, Garrett plotted in silence, his envy sharpening into something colder, ready to strike before dawn. Inside the cookhouse, Sarah May stirred before first light. Sleep had come only in snatches between Samuel's restless moans. Still, when she rose, she felt a fierce determination tighten her spine. If she was to survive here, she would prove her worth not with words, but with work. She tied her apron, brushed flour from her skirt, and set to the business of bread. The smell of yeast and rising dough filled the room, warm against the desert chill that crept in through cracks. She rolled biscuits by hand, fingers moving with memory learned long before grief hollowed her. Samuel lay in a crate by the hearth, wrapped snug, his breathing shallow but steadier. The first glow of dawn reached the window when the sound of boots struck the porch. Voices of men calling for coffee rolled across the yard. The day had begun. Hank Lawson appeared in the doorway, shirt half-buttoned, hair damp from the pump. He paused at the sight of Sarah moving confidently around the kitchen, biscuits already browning in the oven. His storm eyes softened a fraction. "You're up early," he rumbled. "Couldn't sleep," she replied, checking the pot of oatmeal simmering slow. "And if I'm to stay, I'll work." Hank studied her a long moment, then nodded. "Men won't expect breakfast for another hour. You'll catch them by surprise." A small smile tugged Sarah's lips. "Then let it be a good surprise." The first ranch hands drifted in, boots scuffing, hats tilted against dawn chill. They blinked at the sight of her, then at the spread laid across the tables, steaming biscuits, oatmeal thick, bacon crisping in the pan. A tall, wiry cowboy with a scraggly beard whistled low. "Well now, look at this." "Better than Lawson's burnt beans," laughter rippled. Hank's expression darkened, but Sarah only ladled oatmeal into bowls, her hands steady. The wiry one grinned at her. "Name's Jake Morrison, ma'am. Mighty fine smell you've got here." "Eat before it cools," Sarah answered, voice calm but firm. One by one, the men filled plates. Silence fell as they took the first bites. Then came murmurs of approval, rising like wind through grass. "Biscuits melt in your mouth." "Bacon crisp, not burnt." "Coffee's just right." Relief washed through Sarah, warm as the hearth. She had fed her family for years, but this feeding 30 hardened ranch hands was a test greater than any county fair, and she had passed. At the far end of the table, Ben Fletcher, the gray-haired hand, lifted his cup. "Best breakfast since my Martha passed 5 years ago." "Thank you, ma'am." The words caught Sarah's throat. She managed only a nod, her eyes stinging. The men chuckled, ate, talked, the room filling with the rough music of spoons and voices. The atmosphere, once wary, shifted into something almost homely. Then the door swung wide. Garrett entered, spurs biting sharp, eyes sweeping the room. The chatter dulled. He poured coffee without asking, his gaze fixed on Sarah with a smile that was not a smile at all. "Well," he drawled. "Looks like our guest made herself at home." Men shifted uneasily. Sarah kept her back straight, ladle in hand. Garrett sipped, then set the cup down hard. "Tell me, Mrs. May, how long do you plan to impose on Circle M? A week? A month? Until Lawson decides you're his pet project?" Heat rushed to Sarah's cheeks. The room stilled, every eye on her. Her voice came quiet but steady. "I cook. I mend. I work. This is no charity. It is an exchange." A murmur rose from the men. Jake Morrison spoke first, chewing on a biscuit. "Reckon she's right. Food's proof enough." Others nodded, voices chiming. "Best meal we've had in weeks." "She's earned her place." Garrett's face reddened. He scanned the room, saw loyalty slipping, his fist clenched at his side. "Enjoy it then. But remember, Circle M's no boarding house." He turned on his heel, slamming the door behind him. The silence broke with laughter, light and defiant. Sarah exhaled slowly, shoulders easing. Hank moved to her side, voice low. "You held your ground." She swallowed hard. "I only told truth." "That's more than most dare." Later that day, when the men had gone to the range, Sarah scrubbed dishes at the pump. The sun climbed high, heat pressing heavy. Hank carried water buckets, setting them down with ease born of size and strength. "You shouldn't face him alone," he said at last. Sarah looked up. "Garrett?" Hank nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "He'll keep pressing. He won't forgive being shamed in front of the hands." Her jaw tightened. "Then let him press. I won't run." Hank studied her, the faintest glimmer of admiration softening his scarred face. "You've more grit than most men I know." For a moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by the pump's creak. Sarah felt the weight of his gaze, not pity, but respect. It steadied her more than any words. That evening, supper was simpler stew thick with beans and beef, bread baked golden. The men ate heartily, laughter echoing. Even Morrison himself appeared, cane tapping, eyes watchful. He tasted the stew, then looked across the table at Sarah. "You cooked this?" "Yes, sir." He chewed slowly, then set the spoon down. "Good. A ranch runs on many things, cattle, horses, men. But none of it stands without food. Remember that." Garrett's face flushed as he sat rigid beside him. The words rippled through the hall like judgment. Sarah lowered her eyes, hiding the tremor of relief. Later, when the men drifted out and dusk settled, Hank lingered near the hearth. Samuel lay in his crate, cheeks still flushed, but no longer blazing. His breaths came more evenly. Sarah rocked the crate gently, humming low. "He's stronger tonight," Hank said, voice quiet. "Yes." Her hand brushed her son's cheek. "Maybe tomorrow he'll smile again." Hank leaned against the wall, arms crossed. The firelight carved shadows across his broad frame. "You gave these men more than food today. You gave them something they'd forgotten." Comfort. Sarah looked up, startled by the softness in his tone. She searched his face, saw the storm eyes gentled by firelight, saw grief and strength twined like rope. For a heartbeat, she forgot the danger Garrett posed, forgot the harshness of the desert outside. There was only this moment, the warmth of the hearth, the slow breath of her child, the giant cowboy who had carried him from death's edge. Then Samuel stirred, a soft cry breaking the stillness. Sarah bent quickly, gathering him close. Hank straightened, watching with an expression she could not read, part longing, part pain, part something unspoken. Outside, coyotes howled at the rising moon. Inside, the fire cracked, shadows danced, and Sarah May understood that her battle for belonging at Red Creek had only begun. The ranch yard fell quiet after supper, men retiring to bunks, lanterns dimmed one by one. Sarah lay beside Samuel's crate, listening to his breathing, still uneven but stronger with each hour. She whispered prayers into the silence, grateful for every rise and fall of his chest. Near midnight, hoofbeats thundered faint in the distance. At first she thought it dream, but the rhythm grew louder, then scattered, then vanished into night. Moments later, shouts carried across the dark. Doors slammed. Men cursed. Sarah bolted upright. Hank's heavy stride shook the porch. He burst through the door, eyes sharp, jaw tight. "Rustlers," he said. "They've cut into the north pasture." Her heart lurched. She clutched Samuel close. "What will you do?" "Ride." He pulled his revolver from its holster, checked the cylinder, snapped it shut. "Stay inside." Bolt the door. Before she could answer, other men crowded the yard, boots thudding, spurs ringing. Jake Morrison shouted, 50 head, gone in one sweep." 50 head. The number rang in Sarah's ears. Cattle were gold on 4 legs. Such a loss could cripple a ranch. Hank swung into the saddle of a massive bay, rifle strapped to his back. He glanced once at Sarah in the doorway, eyes meeting hers. "Stay safe." For the boy, then the riders thundered into darkness, dust rising like smoke in moonlight. The night grew heavy with waiting. Sarah paced the cookhouse, Samuel fussing in her arms. The howl of coyotes gave way to silence more dreadful still. She lit a lantern, set it by the window, and strained for sounds of return. Instead, she heard whispers outside, voices low, not of ranch hands. She froze, pressing Samuel close. "Lawson's on the trail," one voice muttered. "Good." Leaves the ranch weak, her blood chilled. Strangers, rustlers left behind to prowl the yard. Floorboards creaked as she backed toward the rifle. She gripped it with shaking hands, heart pounding so loud she feared it would give her away. A shadow moved across the window. Knuckles rapped the frame, polite as a neighbor's call. A smooth voice followed. "Evening, ma'am?" "No need for fear. We only want a word." Sarah's throat closed. "This is private ground." "Begone." A chuckle, low and amused. "Word is Lawson keeps notes. Detailed notes. We'll have them tonight." Her pulse hammered. They meant Hank's journal, the one he kept near his bunk, filled with maps, numbers, tracks of cattle. If rustlers wanted it, then his suspicions were true. Theft here was no random act, but planned, systematic. The voice grew harder. "Open up, lady, or we take it ourselves." Glass shattered in the back room. Samuel wailed. Sarah raised the rifle, breath ragged. She had never fired at a man before. The back door crashed. A figure slipped through, lean and dark, eyes glinting under the brim of his hat. He saw the rifle in her grip and grinned. Bold for a widow. Sarah's hands trembled, but she set her feet. "One step closer and I fire." He raised his palms mockingly. "Careful. Powder's precious. Wouldn't want to waste it." Behind him, another shadow crept through the window frame. 2 against 1. Samuel's cries rose, piercing, helpless. Desperation steeled her. She pulled the trigger. The shot roared, smoke choking the room. Wood splintered near the intruder's boot. He cursed, stumbling back. The second man ducked low, glass crunching under his weight. Sarah reloaded with frantic hands, fumbling cartridges from her apron pocket. The baby's cries shook her resolve, but also hardened it. She would not yield. The first man laughed through the smoke. Feisty. Lawson may have picked up more than he bargained for. They advanced. Hoofbeats thundered outside, closer, faster. Shouts cracked the air. The rustlers cursed, darting for the door. Lantern light caught their faces sharp before they vanished into night. The cookhouse door burst wide again. Hank stormed in, revolver drawn, storm eyes blazing. Dust streaked his shirt, sweat glistening on his brow. Behind him, riders dismounted in chaos. "Sarah!" His gaze swept the room, fell on her clutching the rifle, Samuel wailing at her chest, relief and fury tangled in his expression. Are you hurt? She shook her head, knees weak. They wanted your journal. Hank's jaw tightened. Then it's worse than I feared. He strode to the back room, yanked open a trunk, and lifted the worn leather book. Its pages bristled with notes, marks of cattle lost, trails followed, suspicions logged. He slammed it shut, eyes grim. They know too much. Outside, Morrison's voice called through the yard. They slipped us, Hank. Took 50 head clean. Tracks vanish east. Hank stepped to the porch, journal clutched under his arm. Then they had help. Someone told them where to strike. Garrett emerged from shadows, face flushed with sweat and anger. You accusing our own men? I'm saying rustlers don't vanish without a trace, Hank snapped. His storm eyes scanned the gathered hands, sharp as steel. Someone feeds them. Murmurs rose. The ranch divided again, suspicions spreading like wildfire. Morrison raised his cane, silencing the yard. Enough! At dawn we ride again. Until then, no one leaves. We keep watch, Hank nodded, though his jaw stayed tight. His gaze flicked once more toward Sarah, still standing in the cookhouse doorway. Samuel pressed tight against her. For a heartbeat, his expression softened, shadows of grief and promise mingling. Then he turned back to the men, barking orders into the night. The ranch did not sleep. Lanterns burned, rifles polished, horses readied. Sarah lay awake beside Samuel, who whimpered in his sleep. Every creak of the windmill, every coyote cry, every thud of boots made her flinch. She whispered to her son, the same words that had carried her across desert and through fever. Hold on. And as moonlight washed the yard silver, she understood that Circle M was no refuge untouched by violence. It was a battlefield, and she and her child had been drawn into its center. The night stretched long, heavy with tension. Sarah May sat by the hearth, Samuel dozing in the crate beside her. His cheeks still flushed, but the fever's fire had dimmed. She traced his small hand with her finger, whispering prayers he could not hear. Beyond the walls, boots shuffled, men called watch shifts, rifles clicked under lamplight. Near dawn, Hank Lawson returned from the yard, shoulders broad beneath his dust-caked shirt. He dropped onto a bench, silent for a time, staring at the flames. His storm eyes glowed in the fire's flicker. They'll strike again, he said finally. Sarah swallowed. How can you know? Because rustlers don't quit with 50 head, not when they've tasted blood. He rubbed a scarred hand over his jaw. They'll come back, and they'll try more than cattle next time. Her heart chilled. Then we're not safe at all. No, Hank admitted. His gaze shifted to Samuel, softening. But we'll fight to keep it safe. The sun rose red, heat pressing quick. Men saddled horses, riding patrol along fences. Garrett swaggered among them, barking orders, though few listened. Sarah watched from the cookhouse porch, clutching Samuel. She saw the glares. The sidelong glances cast her way. Whispers carried. She brings trouble. Rustlers came for her. Lawson's weakness. By noon, the ranch felt split clean down the middle. Half the men nodded at her, thankful for her food. The other half kept distance, suspicion hard in their eyes. Sarah bore it in silence, focusing on Samuel's slow recovery. She fed him broth with a spoon, wiped sweat from his brow, sang low songs her mother once sang in Missouri kitchens. Yet dread coiled inside her, a snake waiting to strike. That evening, Hank placed a small key on the table. There's a strongbox in my room, behind the hearthstone. If something happens to me, take it. Enough money to get you and Samuel north. Sarah stiffened. Don't speak that way. His storm eyes locked on hers. This fight's bigger than cattle, bigger than Circle M. If rustlers have law on their side, we may be staring down a war. She closed her fingers over the key, trembling. I won't run. You will, if it means the boy lives. Her throat ached. She wanted to argue, but Samuel stirred, whimpering, and all she could do was hold him tighter. The ranch settled uneasy that night. Men took turns patrolling the yard, lanterns swinging with every step. Sarah tried to rest, but every creak of the timbers, every scrape of boots, jolted her awake. At midnight, the sound came again, knuckles rapping polite on wood. She froze, heart racing. The same smooth voice drifted through the cracks. "Evening again, ma'am. We left in a hurry last night. Thought we might finish our conversation." Samuel stirred, fussing in his crate. Sarah's blood iced. She reached for the rifle propped by the door, cocked it with hands that shook. "I've nothing for you," she called, her voice sharper than she felt. A chuckle answered, "Oh, you've something. Lawson's journal. We know he keeps it close. Hand it over, and we'll leave you and the babe breathing." She clutched the rifle tighter. "Leave, or I fire." Silence stretched. Then a whisper from the window. "You've spirit, lady." "But spirit doesn't stop lead," Glass tinkled as a shadow pressed close. Sarah lifted the rifle, breath caught in her chest. Samuel cried, high and thin. Sarah's resolve hardened. She planted her feet, aiming steady. "One step inside and I swear you'll fall." For a moment, only the crackle of the fire answered. Then the voice faded into the dark. Boots scraped softly across the porch. She held her aim, waiting, lungs burning. Minutes crawled. Finally silence. She lowered the rifle slowly, but her heart still pounded. Sweat ran cold down her spine. She crossed the room, checked every shutter, every latch. Then she returned to Samuel, lifting him close. His fever-warm head rested against her chest, his sobs fading into small hiccups. She whispered fiercely, "I'll not let them take you." Dawn came harsh, light flooding the valley. When Hank entered, he found her pale, eyes red from sleepless hours, rifle across her lap. "What happened?" She told him every knock, every word, every shadow. His jaw clenched. He opened the journal, flipping through its pages. "They want proof. Notes, trails, names. Means they fear it enough to kill for it." Sarah touched his arm. "Then burn it." "No." His voice was iron. "Too much at stake. This isn't just rustlers, it's men in office, wearing badges, lining pockets. If we bury truth, they win." His eyes met hers, storm gray, unyielding. "I won't bury truth again." The weight of his grief filled the words. She remembered the locket, the faces he had lost. This was not only about Circle M, it was about ghosts that haunted him still. By midday, riders brought grim news. Another ranch south of the valley had been struck, 50 head gone, a hand shot dead. Panic spread through Circle M like wildfire. Men muttered, eyed one another with suspicion. Garrett seized the moment, standing tall in the yard. "See? This is what Lawson brings. He coddles strays, lets thieves run circles around us. My father's blind to it, but I'm not. If we don't act, Circle M will burn." Murmurs rose, angry, uncertain. Sarah stood in the cookhouse doorway, clutching Samuel, feeling the tide turn. Then Hank's voice cut across the yard, thunderous. "Enough!" Every head turned. His broad frame stood tall, journal in one hand, rifle in the other. "Rustlers are organized. They know our moves before we make them. That means a traitor feeds them. And I aim to find him." Gasps rippled through the men. Eyes darted, suspicion thickening. Garrett's sneer twisted. "Accuse us all, then? Or is this just another trick to cover your weakness?" Hank's storm eyes locked on him. "If you've nothing to hide, you've nothing to fear." The yard fell silent, tension drawn taut as wire. Sarah felt her breath seize. She knew in that instant that Circle M teetered on a knife's edge. One wrong word, one false move, and the ranch would splinter beyond repair. That night, after the men dispersed into uneasy murmurs, Sarah sat by the hearth, Samuel asleep against her breast. She stared into the flames, her body trembling still. She knew now. The rustlers were not phantoms in the dark, but men with names, with power, with allies inside these very walls. And she knew also that Garrett's envy had sharpened into something that would not rest until Hank Lawson fell. She kissed Samuel's warm head, whispering the only words she had left. "Hold on." And outside, under the cold spread of stars, a horseman lingered at the edge of the valley, watching the cookhouse light. He turned his mount east, disappearing into night, carrying word that Lawson's journal still lived, waiting to be taken. By dawn, unease had spread like sickness. Men saddled horses with tense faces, eyes darting as though the traitor might be standing in their midst. Sarah May brewed coffee, hands steady though her heart rattled. She set mugs on the long table, watching men take them in silence, every scrape of chair like a threat. Hank Lawson entered last, journal tucked inside his vest. He drank standing, gaze scanning the room. "We ride north," he said. "Tracks lead that way." Garrett snorted. "Or you lead us into a trap." The men stiffened, waiting. Hank's storm eyes pinned Garrett. "If you've words, speak plain." Garrett's lips curled. Rustlers knew where to strike. Someone fed them. Maybe the man with the notes, a murmur rippled. Hank slammed his cup down. "My notes kept 50 more head alive. Without them, we'd be blind." The room split, half nodding at Hank, half muttering with Garrett. Sarah felt the divide like a canyon beneath her feet. That night, the first shot rang. Sarah had just laid Samuel down when glass shattered. A bullet buried itself in the wall, splinters flying. Samuel screamed. Sarah snatched him up, heart hammering. Hank burst through the door, revolver drawn. "Down!" He shoved her toward the floor as another shot cracked from the dark. Men scrambled outside, lanterns swinging, boots pounding. The yard erupted in shouts. Hank crouched by the window, fired back into night. The muzzle flash lit his face, storm eyes hard. "They've come for the journal." Smoke stung Sarah's throat. She clutched Samuel, rocking him against her chest. Fear burned sharp, but beneath it something fiercer rose. "Not again. They will not take him." Another shot shattered a lantern. Flames licked the wall. Heat surged. "Fire!" someone bellowed. The cookhouse filled with smoke. Sarah coughed, eyes watering. Hank grabbed a bucket, doused the flames, but sparks leapt, catching rafters. "Out!" he roared. Sarah staggered into the yard, Samuel wrapped tight. Men formed a line, passing buckets from the pump. Hank climbed the roof, silhouette black against flame, hurling water until smoke hissed. At last the fire died, leaving charred beams and men gasping. Garrett's voice cut through the chaos. "You see? They came for him, for his cursed notes. He'll burn this place to ash." Some men nodded, faces hard. Others glared, tired of Garrett's venom. Hank dropped from the roof, shirt scorched, skin blistered on one arm. He faced the men, voice raw. "They come because we're close. They come because truth scares them. You think hiding will save you? You'll be next." Silence stretched, broken only by Samuel's cries. Sarah held him tighter, heart aching with the weight of fear and fire. When the men dispersed, Hank bound his arm with strips of cloth. Sarah knelt beside him, hands trembling as she helped. "You'll scar worse if it's not clean," she whispered. He met her eyes, sweat streaking his soot-dark face. "Scars don't matter. They matter to me." Her fingers lingered longer than she meant. His storm eyes softened, but only for a moment before shadows returned. "They'll come again," he said. "Harder. We need proof before they wipe us out." Sarah touched Samuel's hair. "And if proof costs more lives?" Hank looked away, jaw tight. "Then mine will pay before yours." Her breath caught, words lost in her throat. The next evening, a rider limped into the yard, one of the rustlers caught before. Rope bit his wrists, blood dried on his face. Morrison's men dragged him down, shoved him against the corral. "Speak," Hank demanded. The man spat dust. You think you're safe, Lawson? You're a fool. We've law on our side. Marshals, deputies, judges, they all ride with us. You stand in the way of coin flowing east, and men who block coin don't live long. Gasps rippled. Sarah's stomach dropped. Not just thieves, not just drifters. This was power woven deep. The rustler grinned through broken teeth. You'll die first. Then the widow. Then the brat Sarah flinched, holding Samuel close. Rage surged in Hank's storm eyes. He struck the man hard, silence cracking the yard. Garrett's sneer twisted. See? He drags death on us all. Best put him out before they put us down. Hank ignored him, voice thundering to the men. Hear him! The law's poisoned. Only truth saves us. With this journal, we show the territory what they are. Some men cheered. Others turned away. The split widened, dangerous as fire in dry grass. That night, Sarah sat by the hearth's dim glow, Samuel finally asleep. Hank stood by the window, rifle across his arms, watching stars. You can't keep fighting alone, she whispered. His shoulders shifted. I've fought alone since my wife and daughter died. That ends here, her throat tightened. She wanted to tell him he was not alone, that she was here, but the words caught. Instead, she reached, laying her hand on his bandaged arm. He turned, eyes softening, grief and hope tangled in their depths. For a heartbeat, the world stilled, the flames gone, the bullets silent, the rustlers distant. Only them, and the child sleeping between. Then a shout shattered the quiet. Riders! East Ridge! Hank moved, rifle in hand, storm eyes flashing. Sarah clutched Samuel, heart seizing. The war had not waited for dawn. It had come with fire and gunpowder, and it was far from finished. The East Ridge lit with muzzle flashes, brief knives of light tearing the dark. Hooves thundered, men shouting. Hank Lawson was already astride his bay, storm eyes narrowed, rifle balanced across the saddle. Stay inside, he barked toward the cookhouse. Sarah May clutched Samuel at her chest, watching him vanish into the melee of riders. The boy stirred, whimpering, his tiny fingers clinging to her dress. Every scream, every shot outside echoed through her ribs. The ranch yard blazed with chaos. Garrett's voice cut sharp. Hold the line! Don't let them circle the herd! Men scrambled, boots slipping in churned dirt. The air reeked of gunpowder and sweat, of horses lathered with fear. Sarah knelt by the window, peering through smoke. She saw Hank wheel his horse, fire into the dark, then swing down to drag a wounded hand behind cover. Bullets whined, snapping wood. Sparks rained from lanterns knocked loose. Samuel cried. Sarah pressed her lips to his head, whispering prayers drowned by war. By dawn, the shooting ceased. Bodies lay in the yard, 2 rustlers dead, 1 ranch hand bleeding out. Men slumped against the corral, faces ash gray. Horses stamped, eyes rolling white. Hank staggered back into the cookhouse, shirt torn, blood streaking one arm. Sarah rushed to him, Samuel still in her arms. You're hurt. Not mine. He lowered the wounded hand onto the table, a boy no older than 19, blood soaking his sleeve. He'll live. Sarah fetched water, cloth, herbs. She worked beside Hank, their hands moving in desperate rhythm. Together they staunched bleeding, whispered encouragement, fought death back an inch. When at last the boy slept, pale but breathing, Hank leaned heavy against the wall. Sarah touched his shoulder, trembling. How long can this go on? As long as it takes, he said, but his eyes betrayed the weight pressing on him, heavier than any herd. Later, in the ranch house, Morrison convened the men. The old rancher's cane tapped the floor, sharp as judgment. Rustlers strike like soldiers. They knew fences, guards, numbers. This was no gamble. This was planned. Hank placed the journal on the table. Planned by men with power. This book names places, times, losses. It shows patterns only inside knowledge could give, Garrett scoffed. Patterns? Or stories you scribbled to scare us? Hank's jaw tightened. A captured rustler said lawmen ride with them. Marshals, deputies. Paid to look away, murmurs filled the room, anger and fear twisting together. Morrison's face hardened. Names? Not yet, Hank said, but the trail leads to Dry Creek. Supplies move through there. Officials take their cut. That's where we strike next. Garrett slammed his fist. Strike? Against marshals? You'll bring the whole territory down on us. Morrison silenced him with a glare. If law's bought, then it's no law worth keeping. Lawson's right. We ride. Garrett's face flushed dark, but he said no more. That night, Sarah sat on the porch, Samuel asleep in her arms. The air smelled of burned powder, of sweat soaked into earth. Hank joined her, lowering onto the step. His broad shoulders sagged, the weight of command etched deep. You'll go to Dry Creek? She asked. Yes, with Morrison. With men who'll stand. He looked at Samuel, then at her. You'll stay. Safer here. Her throat tightened. Safe? After last night? There is no safe. He said nothing, only stared into the dark, scar catching moonlight. Sarah reached, brushing soot from his cheek. For a moment, he leaned into her touch, as if it tethered him to earth. Promise me, she whispered. Promise you'll come back. His storm eyes softened. I'll try. But if I fall... She pressed her hand to his lips, stopping the words. Don't. For a heartbeat, silence stretched, heavy with what neither dared speak. Then boots clattered, men calling. Hank rose, pulling away. Duty reclaimed him. At dawn, riders set out for Dry Creek. Sarah watched them vanish into the horizon, dust rising behind like a funeral shroud. The ranch yard felt hollow without their thunder. Hours later, Garrett prowled the cookhouse, voice slick. Lawson drags us into ruin. Rustlers, marshals, none of this was our fight until he made it so. Sarah stiffened. It was your fight the moment they stole your cattle. He sneered. A few cows, replaceable, but Lawson hungers for war. And you... His gaze flicked to Samuel. You've chained him to weakness. Her grip on the ladle tightened. Say what you will about me. Leave the boy out. Garrett leaned close, breath bitter with coffee. You'll wish you had left when you could. When Lawson falls, so will you. She held his gaze, refusing to flinch, though her stomach churned. He left with a slam of the door, leaving silence thick as smoke. Evening fell heavy. Sarah rocked Samuel, heart restless. Lanterns burned low, shadows long. She thought of Hank on the road, rifle in hand, storm eyes wary. She prayed for his return, for truth to triumph. Then hooves clattered outside. Sarah stiffened, not the steady rhythm of Circle M riders, but a solitary beat, deliberate, mocking. A knock came, soft, polite. Her blood ran cold. The smooth voice drifted again. Good evening, widow. Heard Lawson rode east. Leaves you alone, doesn't it? Alone with that journal, Samuel stirred, whimpering. Sarah held him close, her free hand reaching for the rifle. You won't take it, she said, voice trembling but fierce. A chuckle. We don't need to take it. Men inside your own walls will hand it over soon enough. Her breath caught. Inside, a traitor. The words slithered like snakes. The stranger's voice lowered. Ask yourself, ma'am, when Circle M burns, who lit the fire? Not us. Look closer at the men you trust. Boots crunched, retreating into night. Sarah sagged against the wall, clutching Samuel. Fear gnawed her bones, but so did suspicion. If not Hank, if not Morrison, then who? The flames in the hearth guttered low, casting long shadows that seemed to whisper betrayal. Sarah May sat on the edge of the bed in the cookhouse's back room, Samuel asleep against her chest. The warning still echoed. Look closer at the men you trust. Every creak of timber, every murmur outside sent her pulse racing. When the door eased open, she gripped the rifle. It's me! Hank Lawson stepped in, dust caked across his shirt, hat in hand, shoulders bowed as if carrying half the territory. You're back, she breathed, both relief and anger tangling. I thought we made Dry Creek by dawn, he cut in, voice low. Found proof. Ledgers hidden in a feed store, names, payments. Deputies, even a marshal's seal. Rustling's no outlaw scheme. It's a business, Sarah's stomach nodded. And Garrett? Gone from the group before we reached town. Said he rode ahead to warn Morrison, but the way eyes followed him. Hank's storm-gray gaze darkened. If there's betrayal, it runs close. She remembered the stranger's whisper. Her breath faltered. They sat by the hearth, shadows shifting. Samuel stirred, coughed, then settled again. Sarah brushed her hand across his brow, then looked up. Hank, she whispered, how long can you carry this alone? You burn with it. I see it in your eyes. But fire consumes more than wood. It'll take you too, his jaw clenched. I carry it because no one else will. And if it kills you? His gaze softened, just for her. Then I die with truth in my hand. Tears stung her eyes. Don't speak of death. I must. He drew something from his pocket, the small iron key he had pressed on her before. He set it in her palm again, curling her fingers around it. If I fall, you take Samuel and ride. Promise me, she shook her head fiercely. I won't promise. Not when you speak as if leaving us behind is already written. Hank's voice roughened. I lost a wife. I lost a daughter. I won't lose him too. The grief in his words struck her like a blow. Silence stretched, heavy with things unspoken. Then Sarah reached across the table, her hand trembling as it touched his scarred knuckles. You haven't lost us. We're here, and you don't have to fight alone. He looked at her, storm eyes softened by firelight. For once, the walls he kept so tightly drawn faltered. Sarah. His voice broke, raw and stripped. I need you to know. Every time I see you fight for that boy, every time you face Garrett without flinching, I see the woman I should have prayed for. But he stopped, swallowing hard. I love you. Her breath caught. The words she had feared, longed for, both at once. She thought of David, her husband lost to fever. Thought of nights spent alone, Samuel burning with sickness. Thought of Hank's steady hands saving her son. Slowly she whispered, and what if it isn't only your burden anymore? What if I love you too? The confession hung between them, fragile as glass, heavy as stone. Hank rose, towering but hesitant, as if unsure whether to step closer or retreat. Sarah stood, Samuel stirring in her arms. For a moment, they faced each other in firelight, two broken souls, bound by loss, daring to hope again. He reached, calloused hand brushing Samuel's hair, then Sarah's cheek. His touch was feather-light, almost reverent. I don't deserve this, he murmured. You deserve more than you let yourself believe. Their foreheads touched, breaths mingling. The world outside, the rustlers, the betrayal, the looming war fell away. For one heartbeat, there was only them, the warmth of fire, and the steady beat of something new. But the spell shattered with pounding on the door. Hank! Jake Morrison's voice ragged. Trouble! Hank tore away, storm eyes hardening. He yanked the door open. Jake stood there, pale, sweat streaming. Rustlers hit south fence. Cattle scattered. Men ambushed, Hank's jaw locked. How many? Too many. And they had our signals. Jake's gaze darted to Sarah. Someone fed them again. Sarah clutched Samuel tighter, the stranger's whisper roaring back. Look closer at the men you trust. Garrett's absence from Dry Creek, his venom at supper, his sneer when he called her weakness. Her voice came sharp. It's him! Garrett Jake flinched, but didn't deny it. Hank's face darkened, thunder gathering. Then he'll answer for it. The ranch roared with chaos. Men shouted, saddled horses, grabbed rifles. Morrison himself hobbled into the yard, Cain striking hard. Circle M stands or falls tonight. Garrett emerged from the shadows, face calm, almost smug. Blaming me again, Lawson? Convenient Hank strode toward him, chest heaving. Rustlers ride with your words in their ears. How else would they know where to strike? Garrett's smile thinned. Careful. Accuse me before these men. You better have proof. Sarah stepped forward, Samuel in her arms. Her voice, clear and cutting, rang across the yard. The proof is your tongue. You've called him traitor since I arrived. You've mocked, poisoned, and planted doubt. Who else but you would open the gate for thieves? A murmur spread through the men. Garrett's face flushed, but he stood defiant. You put your faith in a cook, in a widow. You'll regret it. Hank's hand closed on his revolver. No, you'll regret what you've done before steel cleared leather. Shots cracked beyond the ridge. Men shouted. Cattle bawled in terror. The rustlers were closer than anyone feared. Morrison's voice thundered. Enough! Save your quarrel. We ride! Men mounted, rifles ready, faces grim. Hank swung into his saddle, storm eyes sweeping to Sarah. She stepped close, heart racing. Don't leave me with silence between us. His jaw softened. He leaned low, voice for her alone. Then hear me once more. I love you. If I don't return, remember it. Her eyes burned. Then return, because I love you too. For a heartbeat. The world stilled, their words binding stronger than iron. Then Hank wheeled his bay, galloping with the men into night. Sarah clutched Samuel, tears streaking her face as the thunder of hooves faded. The fire guttered low again, shadows whispering betrayal, love, and the cost of both. The night was a furnace of waiting, every shout on the wind, every faint echo of rifles across the ridge pulled her heart taut. Samuel whimpered in her arms, his fever-smooth cheek damp with her tears. She pressed her lips to his hair, rocking in silence, counting each breath he drew. At last, the thunder returned. Hooves pounded, closer, harder. Lanterns flared as ranch hands spilled into the yard, shouting. Sarah rushed to the door, Samuel against her chest. Hank Lawson led them in. His bay streaked with foam, his shirt torn, dust caked across his jaw. His storm-gray eyes found hers at once. He swung down, striding toward her, blood dark on his sleeve. You're hurt, she began. Not mine, he said quickly, voice hoarse. Rustlers scattered. We cut their line. But Garrett, her stomach clenched. What about him? Hank's jaw set. He rode with us, then veered off. We followed tracks straight into a camp of rustlers waiting. He gave them every move, gasps rippled through the men. Garrett stumbled into the yard, dust on his boots, face pale. Lies, he spat. Lawson twists everything. He wants this ranch for himself, but Morrison's cane struck the porch, silencing the noise. The old rancher's voice carried iron. I saw it. My own eyes. He signaled them. My son fed the wolves, the yard froze. Garrett's face crumpled, then twisted into rage. You always favored him. Always, his hand darted for his revolver. Hank's own steel cleared leather in a blink. The crack split the dawn. Garrett's pistol clattered from his grasp. His hand burned red. He fell to his knees, curses spilling, but the fight was gone. Morrison's face was stone, grief carved deep. Take him. He'll answer in town. Two men seized Garrett, dragging him into the shadows of disgrace. When silence fell, Hank turned to Sarah. His chest heaved, his scar dark with sweat. It's finished, he whispered. The herd's safe. The rustler's broken. The traitor named Sarah searched his face, seeing not just the victory, but the weariness, the years of grief carried like chains. She touched his arm, gentle. It's finished for now. But what comes after? When he looked past her, toward the horizon washed pale with morning. After, we rebuild. Days passed. The ranch hands mended fences, drove cattle back from scattered pastures. Sarah baked bread, fed men with hands blistered from battle. Samuel grew stronger, his laugh ringing small but bright in the cookhouse. Each evening, Hank returned from the range, shoulders bowed but eyes softening when they found her. He helped with Samuel, holding the boy with practiced ease, scarred fingers tracing hair fine as corn silk. One evening, as dusk bled across the valley, Morrison called a gathering in the yard. The men stood in a half circle, weary but proud. The old rancher's cane struck dirt. "Circle M still stands because Lawson carried it," Morrison said, voice rough. "He fought, bled, and held this place when others would have let it fall. I name him not foreman, but partner. From this day, Circle M is his as much as mine." Cheers rose, rough voices lifted. Sarah pressed Samuel close, her throat thick. Hank stood still, jaw set, as if the weight of the words was too much to bear. Then he bowed his head once. "I'll see it kept." That night, under stars, Hank found Sarah on the porch. Samuel slept inside, the ranch quiet at last. Hank knelt before her, broad frame shadowed by moonlight. In his hand gleamed a simple band of silver. "I have no fine words," he said, voice unsteady. "Only this, I love you. I love that boy. I would see my days end here, beside you, if you'll have me." Tears blurred Sarah's sight. Her hand trembled as he slid the ring onto her finger. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Yes, Hank Lawson." He rose, sweeping her into his arms. For the first time since fever had stolen her husband, since dust had nearly stolen her son, she felt whole again. Morning broke with bells of cattle lowing, sun spilling across fields green with promise. Men rode out singing rough tunes, laughter back on their tongues. The ranch breathed again, not untouched, but alive. Sarah stood in the yard with Samuel on her hip, watching Hank stride across the corral, giving orders with steady authority. He turned, caught her gaze and smiled, a rare, unguarded smile that lit the scar, not hid it. She smiled back, heart swelling. This was not the life she had dreamed as a girl in Missouri, nor the one she had clung to as a young bride. It was rougher, harsher, carved from dust and blood. But it was hers now, and it was enough. At dusk, as shadows lengthened, Sarah sat with Hank and Samuel on the porch. The boy laughed, reaching for Hank's hat, clumsy fingers tugging. Hank let him, storm eyes soft as he watched the child play. Sarah leaned against his arm, the silver ring catching last light. "We've lost much," she said quietly, "but we've gained more." Hank nodded, gaze fixed on horizon. "Loss carved us hollow, but now we fill it with this." With us, the valley lay silent, save for cattle lowing and wind in the grass. Peace, fragile but real, settled over Circle M. And as night fell, Sarah knew their story was not finished. It had only begun. From the dust of despair, she had found refuge in Red Creek Ranch. From the fever that nearly stole Samuel, she had discovered Hank's hidden strength. From betrayal inside the circle of men, truth had finally burned clear. From Garrett's envy and fall, justice had been restored. And from ruin, a fragile but real family was born. One evening, weeks later, Sarah carried Samuel to the porch where Hank mended tack under fading light. The boy, stronger now, stretched his small hand toward the scar on Hank's jaw and touched it without fear. Hank froze, then let the child's fingers rest, as if the gesture stitched old wounds shut. Sarah's eyes filled, knowing that in that simple act her son had accepted him, not as protector, but as father. The West was harsh, but kindness could take root even in stone. And so the question lingers for all who hear their tale. When life drives you to choose between guarding your heart or risking it again, which path would you take? Would you shut the door or open it to love despite the cost? If their story stirs something in you, tell us your thoughts below. Subscribe so you won't miss what comes next. and share this tale so others can carry its lesson. For in the end, the message is plain. Loss may shape us, but love is what rebuilds us.